Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. We're here again, opening up the latest market reports, the freshest financial intelligence, really trying to help you figure out what actually matters in all the noise. Today, we're zoning in on a company that's, well, always seems to be in the headlines, doesn't it? Snap, the company behind Snapchat. And the big question we're tackling, based on everything we could pull together as of early October 2025, it's pretty straightforward. Is now a good time to buy Snap? Now, before we really get into the weeds on the fundamentals, the competition, all those technical signals, just a quick reminder, please hit that subscribe button, maybe give us a like, and definitely leave a comment below. Seriously, if there's a specific company you want us to look at next time, tell us. That's how we shape these conversations around what you want to know. Okay, so our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to unpack the recent fundamental trends, we'll dig into the technical data, look hard at Snap's competitive spot, and flag those really important upcoming catalysts. The goal.
By the end of this, you should have a much better framework, the context you need to form your own educated opinion on whether Snap fits your risk profile right now.
Exactly. And that context really has to start with the financials, right? If you look behind the curtain, the main story everyone's talking about with Snap is this potential turnaround, a real one possibly.
Yeah, I'm seeing those headline numbers, and they do seem to point that way. I mean, looking at the trailing 12 months, the TTM, revenues hit $5.64 billion. That's what? About 16.4% year-over-year growth, up from $4.61 billion in 2023. That feels like a pretty significant jump. Suggests maybe that monetization engine is finally, clicking into gear.
It does suggest that. And here's maybe the key insight from the sources. That's 16.4% growth. It isn't just about getting more users because, let's face it, user growth has slowed down across the whole social media sector. This really implies a big lift in average revenue per user, ARPU. The data points towards improvements in their ad platform, better measurement tools for advertisers, basically making it easier for businesses to see a return.
Ah, okay.
And when advertisers get better ROI, will they spend more? That seems to be driving that top-line performance.
Right, that makes sense. That would make the revenue growth feel more sustainable, not just a flash in the pan. But we still got to talk about the losses, right? I mean, this company still loses money. Yeah. Narrowing the net loss is good, sure. But what specifically, beyond just that top line, makes you think this improves financial health is, solid and not just, say, aggressive cost cutting that might hurt them later? Analysts do tend to get excited about turnarounds sometimes.
That's a fair challenge. It's absolutely critical. What's maybe reassuring here is the scale of the improvement in losses. The latest TTM net loss, it dropped by almost half. Went from nearly $698 million down to around $546 million.
Wow, okay.
That's a huge step. It suggests they're getting more efficient operationally, maybe streamlining R&D or operating costs without necessarily killing innovation, which is key. But, and this is an important nuance we have to include, Q2 of 2025. Well, the net loss was actually a bit wider than the quarter before, $262.57 million.
A step back.
Could be seen that way, maybe a short-term blip. Seasonal spending, maybe some one-off investments, we don't know for sure. But the analysts looking at the bigger picture, especially looking ahead to Q3 forecasts, they still seem to think the overall trend is towards stabilizing things, eventually hitting break even.
Okay, so what about the immediate future then? What are the expectations they absolutely have to meet, in the next few weeks?
All right, the street consensus, what everyone's watching for Q3 2025, is revenue around $1.49 billion. And the EPS loss, the loss per share, they expect that to narrow more down to -$0.12 per share.
Those are the numbers to watch.
Absolutely paramount. If they hit those targets, showing growth and cost control together, that could really make the market rethink the stock's value. And, financially, they seem okay, liquidity-wise. Debt levels are manageable. That's crucial because it means they're saving cash for growth, for innovation, maybe building up that war chest for the inevitable ARAI battle with Meta.
Right.
Plus, no dividend payments draining cash gives them maximum flexibility.
And speaking of flexibility, or maybe resilience, the source mentioned a low beta, a one-year beta of 0.70. For a tech stock like this, that seems surprisingly low, doesn't it? What does that tell us about how the big money, the institutional investors, might be looking at Snap now?
Yeah, 0.70 is low for this sector. It suggests a potential shift in how people see the stock. It means compared to, say, Meta or other big growth names, Snap's stock price isn't swinging quite as wildly with the overall market ups and downs. Investors might be starting to see it less as just pure speculation and maybe more like Well, almost like a utility for that Gen Z demographic. They realize those users are pretty sticky, whether the economy's booming or busting. And that stickiness, that defensibility, that's part of its moat.
Okay, let's unpack that moat then, that defensibility. What exactly does Snap have that stops Meta or TikTok from just, well, steamrolling them, especially with how intense the ad competition is?
Well, the moat seems to be built on a couple of things. One is that category leadership, like you said, with the younger crowd, Gen Z, millennials. For that visual first, quick interaction stuff, they still dominate. It's a unique brand identity, and that's actually really hard for competitors to just copy. And the other part is their innovation pipeline. They've put a lot into unique AR ad products, better tools for creators to make money. But the thing that's really catching attention now, it's the success of Snapchat plus their paid subscription.
Ah, yeah, I saw that number. Over 9 million subscribers now.
Exceeding 9 million. That's huge.
9 million people paying.
Yeah.
That is a big validation of loyalty, isn't it?
Oh,
How does that actually impact the business beyond just, the subscription fees themselves?
well, it does a few things. First, it gives them a bit of insulation from the ups and downs of the ad market. If ad budgets get tight because the economy slows, having those 9 million paying users provides a steadier, recurring revenue stream. Doesn't just vanish overnight. Second, it shows real loyalty, like you said. And third, it gives them incredibly valuable data on their most engaged users, which, guess what? That feeds right back into making their advertising products better and more targeted. It's a virtuous cycle, potentially. So if you connect all of this, the near-term stuff, the catalysts that could really move the stock price, the big one is obviously Q3 earnings, October 28th. That's the date.
Circle that one on the calendar.
Definitely. The market's expecting strong year-over-year growth in both revenue and daily active users, the DAUs. This is basically management's report card. Time to prove the turnaround story is for real.
Okay, October 28th, critical date. If they knock it out of the park, yeah, could see a big move. What's the analyst consensus on where the stock price could go? The targets.
Right now, the average rating on the street is technically a hold, but the average 12-month price target, that's sitting at $10.17.
Okay, and the current price is $8.22.
Exactly. So that target suggests, roughly 23.7% upside potential from where it is right now. Significant room to run if they deliver. And there are other potential drivers, too, shorter term. Things like announcements about new features for SnapMap, maybe integrating commerce there,
Right.
using location for retail stuff, and also expanded AR advertising tools. That AR piece is where a lot of people see the real long-term growth potential, the optionality.
Right, the AR side. Now,
Yeah.
here's where it gets a bit fuzzy, right? The speculative stuff. We always say be careful with rumors, unverified info. But what's the chatter out there? What's maybe influencing sentiment beyond just the hard numbers? Because sometimes sentiment moves stocks just as much, if not more. Well, we're seeing some buzz about potential new AR/VR features. They've obviously been focused on spectacles, their glasses, maybe something new there. Also whispers about partnerships, big retailers, maybe other tech firms, possibly tying into e-commerce using that AR tech. And, it always seems to come up with stocks that are down from their highs. Unconfirmed talk about activist investors maybe getting interested. That kind of chatter definitely creates volatility.
But you got to stay on your toes as an investor.
Absolutely right. Which brings us nicely from the future potential and the story to the cold, hard technicals. What the chart is telling us. Does the market actually seem to believe this turnaround story right now?
Okay, so the price as of October 2nd, we said $8.22. It seems to have stabilized a bit recently. Where are those key levels, the lines in the sand we need to watch? Yeah, the technical picture looks, well, constructive, maybe cautiously optimistic. The stock's held above that important $7 level. That's a psychological support. Over the last quarter, the main range seems to be support down around $6.90 and resistance up near $9.80. What's encouraging, if you're bullish, is where it sits relative to the moving averages. It's trading above its 50-day simple moving average, the SMA, which is around 7.91 cents. That's good. And crucially, it's getting close to the 200-day SMA, which is up at $9.12. That 200-day, that's a big one. It's a major psychological level for institutional money.
Like the long-term trend indicator.
Exactly. If it can break above $9.12 and stay above it, that wouldn't just be a technical win. It would signal a potential shift in long-term sentiment, like the market's finally decided the trend has flipped from bearish to bullish.
Okay, so the chart looks potentially set up for a move higher. Is it looking overbought? Like, has it run up too fast already?
Not really, no. The RSI, the 14-day Relative Strength Index, it's sitting around 37.41. That's pretty low. It confirms the stock isn't overbought. Technically, there's plenty of room for it to move up before hitting those levels where you'd expect maybe some profit taking. However, and this is a big however, we have to talk about trading volume, there are some mixed signals there that definitely warrant caution. Remember that price surge back in late July?
Yeah.
Well, looking back, that move happened on declining trading volume.
Oh, that's not usually what you want to see, is it?
Not ideally, no. That divergence suggests the rally maybe lacked real conviction. It might not have been big institutions piling in, but maybe more short covering or just speculative retail interest, which can evaporate quickly.
So that kind of raises a tough question then, doesn't it? Why should we trust the technical setup if the volume, which kind of signals institutional belief, seems a bit weak?
It means the current setup is likely very catalyst dependent. The chart looks ready, it's coiled, but it probably needs that injection of confidence. It needs a reason for the big money to jump in.
Which brings us back to October 28th.
Exactly. That earnings report is absolutely critical. If they deliver a solid beat, strong guidance, then you'd expect the volume to surge, validating that constructive technical pattern. Without that catalyst, it could just drift. Or worse. And we also saw that sharp drop just recently, late September. Price went from about $8.33 down to $7.71 pretty quickly. That shows there's still selling pressure lurking, and investor uncertainty can still trigger rapid pullbacks. So, yeah, the technicals are constructive, but maybe fragile.
Fragile, okay. That fragility naturally leads us to the risks. What could just completely knock this whole turnaround story off the rails, regardless of how nice the chart looks? Well, the risks we pulled from the sources, they're definitely significant, starting with the company itself. User growth has to pick up speed again to meet those targets. If DAUs miss expectations, look out below. The stock will likely get punished hard. And we just have to accept profitability is still a ways off. Losses are forecast to continue right through the end of 2025. That's a long time to wait for black ink. Plus, you can't ignore the legal stuff. There's that pending class action lawsuit about alleged securities fraud. That just creates constant headline risk, uncertainty. It's always there in the background.
And then there are the external market risks, which are just relentless, aren't they? Competition, Meta, TikTok, they aren't going anywhere. They're huge, well-funded competitors. And digital ad spending is notoriously sensitive to the economy. If the global economy keeps slowing down, often the first budgets companies cut are things like digital advertising. That makes Snap's revenue growth very vulnerable to macro headwinds.
Okay, so putting it all together then, we've got accelerating revenue, narrowing losses, 9 million paid subscribers, a constructive chart, but also persistent losses, legal issues, fierce competition, economic sensitivity. What's the synthesis here? What does it all add up to?
Right. If we try to boil everything down, despite those very clear risks, the overall rating from the analysis actually leans bullish. Let's say maybe an 8 out of 10.
Okay, an 8 out of 10. Bullish. Why?
The rationale is really anchored in that accelerating revenue and the significantly narrowing losses. It makes the turnaround story feel plausible, not just wishful thinking. And critically, you have that clear, tangible, near-term catalyst with the Q3 earnings on October 28th. The technical setup, being not overbought, means the stock has room to run if the news is good. It's coiled. Plus, looking longer term, the innovation in AR and AI, that provides some attractive optionality, some potential upside that maybe isn't fully priced in yet.
So given that bullish lean, that 8 out of 10, what's the suggested time frame here? Is this analysis pointing towards Snap as more of a short-term trade around earnings?
Okay.
Or is it suggesting a longer-term allocation betting on that AR future?
Well, interestingly, the analysis seems to suggest it could be attractive for both approaches, depending on your style and risk tolerance.
How so? For short-term traders, you've got that very defined event risk or opportunity around the October 28th earnings. A clear catalyst to play. But for longer-term investors, the thesis would be you're buying into that turnaround narrative gaining traction, and you're leveraging that potential future value from AR and AI, hoping for a significant re-rating of the stock maybe into 2026 and beyond.
Okay, that makes sense. Two potential ways to look at it. But of course, we absolutely have to emphasize again everything we've discussed here. It's derived purely from the source materials we reviewed. It's for research, for education only. It is absolutely not investment advice, not intended to be. You should always do your own homework, your own due diligence, and definitely talk to a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.
Couldn't agree more. So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on, something provocative. What we've unpacked today shows this tension, right? The business fundamentals seem to be improving that 16.4% growth. The smaller losses, that's real. But profitability is still missing in action, and those legal risks are genuine. So the question for you is, Which side of that tension wins out? Is it the promise of AR innovation and that sticky Gen Z loyalty? Or is it the hard reality of ongoing losses and brutal competition that's going to drive this stock through the rest of 2025?
Yeah, think about that core conflict. How might you position yourself depending on which side you think prevails? We really appreciate you spending this time with us, digging into the data, and hopefully applying some of this knowledge as you navigate the markets.
We'll catch you on the next conversation.